Hello and welcome back to the Water Matters podcast. And today I'm joined by Luke. How are you?
Very well, sir. How are you keeping?
Very good indeed. And today we're talking about hosepipe bans. And if you know Luke already, he is our videographer here at Graph UK. You might be thinking, well, what's he got to do with hosepipe bans? But you've had the privilege of recording a lot of content recently about hosepipe bans. They're very much in the news, and you have done two incredible videos about it with two wonderful customers that allowed us to film them and their water butts talking about it. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking all about hosepipe bans. And despite the amount of recent rainfall here in the UK, there are many counties still experiencing hosepipe bans. And that's in the Thames Valley catchment of Oxfordshire, Wiltshire, parts of Berkshire and Gloucestershire. You have it in Yorkshire water, which covers Yorkshire, part of Lincolnshire and part of Derbyshire. You got it in the southeast, which covers Sussex and Kent, and then we finally have it down in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. So still large areas of the country still in a hosepipe ban. But today in particular, we're going to be talking about Yorkshire water and Thames water. And so we're going to start off with our first customer, one really nice lady called Julie, allowed us to film at her house talking about the hosepipe bans. Here's a small snippet of the video we did with Julie.
And we decided that a water butt was the only solution, really, because the garden was really struggling and I'd been using the hosepipe a lot more than I really wanted to, particularly being on a water bill and water meter and having to use the watering can. My garden is a sanctuary. I absolutely love spending time in my garden. I'm out here 2 or 3 times a day, just pottering around, checking the plants. I come out every morning and see what's sprouted overnight and what's growing. So keeping it hydrated and watered is really, really important. We've invested a lot of time and a lot of money.
She was very fortunate to show you the Batings Reservoir.
Yeah, no, the project itself, the whole idea, like you say, we had this idea of really focusing on the hosepipe bans around those areas. And through emails and stuff that you initiated, like you say, we got in conversation with these people and filming with Julie and learning about her story and her situation was actually very, very interesting. Very, very interesting, I have to say. And you mentioning being able to see Batings Reservoir and how low it got to actually just came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Initially, the sort of agreement when we came down was just to get the water butt installed and ask her a few questions to camera just about her experience and how she's planning to use the water butts. And through conversation, she kept on talking about the reservoir and how low it had been, and I wasn't expecting anything to come from it. And then towards the end, she said, look, it's only just around the corner. You're driving that way anyways. Do you want me to show you? And I was like, of course. I said, I don't want to take more of your time. I really appreciate it. But she thought it was quite important, and I'm so glad that she did. And so she took me there. Instantly, when I got there, it was really obvious where the water line was meant to be and where it actually was. And the fact that she said it had grown over with grass means that it's been such a long time that the water's been at that height that, grass has been able to grow. And it was very interesting. And I'm really pleased that she showed me that, because for me, being the videographer, it really helped bring the story together and get the points across. And that's the reason I was so happy with that video in the first place, was because you've got all the points about talking about having these water issues and then actually being able to see it like that was absolutely amazing. And when she showed me, she talked me through it. She showed me everything. She said she's been living in the area for 20 years and this is the lowest she'd ever seen it. And I was like, could you do me a massive favor? Could you please just tell me that to camera whilst we're there? I wasn't planning to be filming at that moment. But I'm so glad I asked, even though I was nervous because, again, like I said, I didn't want to take up more of her time. And she did it, and it just brought the video together. And it was absolutely amazing. I'm so pleased she did it. And that video, as a result, I think is probably one of the best sort of customer testimonials and stories that we've captured.
Yeah, and going back to kind of the initial idea of it, because Yorkshire was the first kind of county and catchment area that's going to be affected by a hosepipe ban in the UK, we wanted to get the message across of how having a water butt in your garden can be beneficial from the point of view of someone that's never had a water butt in their garden, so how much it would help them, especially during a hosepipe ban. And what's quite interesting is when you notice it being dry, you'll probably think, well, there's been a lack of rainfall over the past few weeks. You might see fields turning kind of a wiltishly yellowy brown colour because there's been a lack of rainfall. But I guess in the case of Julie's story is that because she lives so close to the reservoir, she's seen the water shortage over time just evolve. And like you say, you've got really good shots of where the reservoir level should be. And like you're saying, there is more vegetation growing where the water should be, but because it's not been there for such a long time, it started to grow.
Yeah, no, it was, like I say, it was really, really interesting to see. And like you say, because it's so close to her, she often says she walks her dogs around that area. And actually the reservoir itself, the bit I captured was only one section of it. And the further you look down, actually the worse it gets, although I don't know how that makes sense, because surely you'd think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
But the further you get down to the point when you're looking at the end bit, there's basically nothing there. It's just a puddle. So it's very obvious just from seeing that it's not just whatever the government, whoever, saying, look, Yorkshire, you're on a hosepipe ban. People that live there can actually see it.
Yeah.
They can actually see it. There is a shortage, and hence why they're having the ban. And as far as I know, it's still not being lifted.
Nope. From what I read, the ban is going to be in place until further notice, and the further notice is when their reservoir levels get up to a point where they can lift it. This happened back in 2022 in Devon and Cornwall. So basically the rule of thumb for the kind of regulation when it comes to any water utility is the reservoir levels that service that area needs to be back up to a level it can, happily supply the people surrounding it. And from what I've read, especially in Devon and Cornwall, as I was about to say, in 2022, it started in about summertime, and their hosepipe ban lasted for 13 months. So lasted well over a year, mainly because the reservoir levels never got topped up. It was that dry, and they got to a point they were so low, it took them such a long time to finally get up to a decent level. So I imagine for people in Yorkshire, it'd be the case. And yes, we've had recent spouts of rainfall, yet it's not enough to fill up the reservoirs. There's still the hosepipe bans in place. They'll probably roll on into autumn and winter.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. And like I say, it's when it gets lifted, I'm sure, I would say things go back to normal, but then it'll be the summer again, and then we're in the same position again. So for her, in her case, for someone that cares so much about her garden and the presentation of her garden, both for herself and her friends, but also her family and her grandkids, that sort of led to her putting in a water butt, which is, where I've come in as Graph, doing the filming side of things. So it was a really nice story to capture, and it was fantastic for me because it was completely authentic. Obviously, I was sat behind the camera, sort of talking about the topic of conversation, but everything she said in that video really came directly from her. I didn't tell her, there was no script ahead of time. I just turned up and said I'd love to have a conversation with you. And so the way it came out and the things she pointed out were exactly the things that we spoke about in that first meeting we had as a team. So it was good confirmation for us at Graph that what we suspect is happening and how people are being affected is exactly what's going on after speaking to people firsthand about it.
Because as you mentioned, we had a meeting to really think about how we're going to get this out, what we can get out of this video and this opportunity, because we really did want to spread the message of the hosepipe ban that's currently in place in that area. And she did incredibly well. And it made me realise how much people do treasure their gardens, in the sense that, for her, it is her and her partner's safe space. They do love spending a lot of time in their garden.
Absolutely.
They invested a lot of time and money to get it to a point they're really happy with. And she made the point in the video, they were sat in their garden deciding what they were going to do about the garden because of the hosepipe ban. And that's what then forced them to look at getting a water butt. How can they save rainwater at home to then use in the garden because of the impending hosepipe ban? And I know since then she's really liked the water butt. She's now had a second, which has been fitted again by Andy. As a nice thank you to her for being so good in front of camera and allowing us to get such a great video out of her.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And from that, once I did the filming, I remember coming back and telling all of you guys, I was like, look guys, let me edit it because I know this is going to be absolutely amazing. And then the way it came out in the end, I'm so pleased. But that then led us to say, right, well, we've got this one. perfect for Yorkshire. Where do we go next? And then I think you started a conversation with Chris.
Yes.
And that led us to then do, I say, a similar video, a video with the same sort of agenda, with Chris in Oxfordshire, obviously being slightly different, but still under a hosepipe ban. And that was also, again, a really good one. And I'm pleased to say a completely authentic video, which is what's so amazing and I'm so happy about with these 2 videos.
And this is what Chris had to say about his water butt and how this has helped him in the hosepipe ban.
The garden is a reasonable size. Conservation obviously is quite important, so I wanted to try and conserve water, try and collect as much water as possible, use rainwater rather than tap water. So I bought one Linus water butt from Graf, and then about a year later bought another, and now I've got a third one. So can collect probably about 600 plus litres of water when it rains. It hasn't done for a while, but when it rains, we collect quite a bit of water, principally to water the pots that I've got around, and help the garden grow and conserve water.
These people really, really care about their gardens more than both of them talked about the mental health side of things, how it became part of their sort of daily routine. That sort of gradual growth and sort of maintenance of their garden means a lot to them. So the idea, whereas some people might just say, well, it's a hosepipe ban, so be it, it's going to happen, can't be bothered. These people that really, really care are desperately looking for a solution. And so, again, water butt being a similar thing. And the difference with Chris, actually, was that he already had 2 of our water butts.
That's where my idea come from, in the sense that when we had the initial conversation with Julie, the purpose of that was, well, I don't have a water butt, I don't have a solution. How am I going to tackle the impending hosepipe ban they're facing in Yorkshire? Whereas I wanted to get an entirely different perspective from Chris in Oxfordshire, in the fact that he already had water butts. He's had them in their garden for some time. He had one connected to his greenhouse. He had 2 already connected to his home. So for us, it was all about, okay, how can we get the message to people that don't have a solution, that if you already have a solution, the advantages it gives you already having one. And like you say, he has a really beautiful garden that he cares very much deeply for, and he wanted to showcase it, but he also wanted to spread the message of having these solutions in place for your home helps you to then tackle these issues facing with hosepipe bans.
Big time. And the case, for him in his home, another solution might be a rainwater harvesting system, but he's already spent so much time on his garden. So for him, the idea of digging it up and all this stuff, I think would probably be a nightmare for him, to be honest. I'm sure he'd say that. And one thing he talks about, and again, completely organically came out, was the fact that the water butts, at least the ones that he chose, meshed well with the style of his house and stuff like that, which is handy, which helps. And he doesn't feel, and the fact that he can plant, he's got his strawberries in one of them, and he's looking at doing some spices and herbs in another one, helps with his aesthetic. So he didn't feel like the water butts sort of, how would I put it, stuck out like a sore thumb as attached to the side of his house. More, they sort of meshed well and became part of the aesthetic.
They blended in seamlessly with the surrounding environment.
Big time. And I think that's why he was so happy to talk to us, especially on the day, to talk to me and have a chat with me again. Like Kim was saying, it was wonderful that I could just sit down, just say, so tell me about it. What you planning to do with the water butt? How have the first 2 helped you out? How is the third one going to help you? And in his case as well, he from an environmental side, he also did mention in the video how he thought he could be helping out. It's just that little thing that he's doing extra that's clearly, for him in his mind, making a difference. And what's interesting is, since that video, he's told me that his neighbours and stuff have come over, and then they've had conversations about it. So it's just, one person making a slight change. And to be fair, like I say, he was already doing it anyways. Going out doing the filming has then sparked on more conversations around him.
And that's the positive impact, I guess, is having those solutions in place. Not only has it helped him to overcome the hosepipe ban and the restrictions, because he knows he's got a plentiful supply of rainwater that he can then reuse in his garden, and that's helped to keep his garden to the level that he really wants it to be at. But you make a very good point. In his local community, he's helped in, have conversations around what they can do in order to capture rainwater, to reuse it instead of running the outside tap to fill up the watering can to then water their plants with, which they can still do under hosepipe ban, but instead using rainwater instead.
Yeah, big time. And like I say, these 2 videos have been quite a success, at least in my eyes, just from, like Akim was saying, they went so well, I think, in terms of what we wanted to capture at Graph, but also as part of the wider narrative about sort of talking about the hosepipe bans and the solutions around them. I think the plan is, correct me if I'm wrong, the plan is probably to do a few more. So that is also a message out to everyone else, by the way. If you do have a garden that you're proud of, and you do care about water conservation and things like that, please do reach out to us, because I think, like I say, I'd love to do another one of these, at least one more by the end of the year. So if you're in an affected... if you're in an affected hosepipe ban area, just reach out to Graph UK, and we'd love to have a chat with you.
You make a good point just then, briefly, about it's not just a case of people, especially in Chris's case, yes, they're proud of their garden, but he was already conscious of the micro habits he had and how that affected the planet, I guess, because he was very conscious of changing weather patterns, the fact that, it's raining less and less each summer. We're having drier summers, and then in the winter we're experiencing wetter winters in terms of more rainfall in a shorter period of time. So himself was very conscious of it, and he was thinking, what can I do?
Yeah, and that's the really ideal thing, and actually quite the surprising thing in a way, because when I went to both Chris and Julie's to film, I had obviously the sort of set of questions that I had in my notes. I also had a few facts from my end, just in case they weren't aware of something. And in both cases, they knew every note that I had written down anyways. They already knew the answers to it. And they actually knew a lot more. I remember Julie talking about other solutions that she's tried and all these sorts of things. And even I was like, okay, wow, these are really, really keen gardeners. And these are exactly the sort of people that, like we're coming back to, that have other conversations with others and then make people more aware.
They're people that can have an impact, that can make a difference.
Big time. And those are the sort of people that, I'd be happy to say we sort of want to put on a pedestal in a way, because their voices mean a lot. In a way they mean more than, if I said to someone working on behalf of Graph, if I said, hosepipe bans are going on and talked about the solutions, that's one thing. But if people that are using our products talk about it, it just makes it so much more impactful.
Would you say they're the best 2 videos you've produced?
Ooh, that's a good question, Callum. From a narrative perspective, I think so. Obviously, there's I always go on about the Birmingham Stormwater project, just because I liked it stylistically. But from sort of capturing a very personal story, and how the products of Graph are making a difference in their lives, they're definitely the most ideal ones. We have just also finished editing a video in Yorkshire, which we did a couple of weeks back with a guy called Peter, and he installed a rainwater harvesting system and a wastewater system at the same time in the same sort of location. And again, I didn't necessarily go in with the intention of talking heavily about hosepipe bans, but it did come up naturally in conversation when I had my sort of sit down and chat with him. And again, a third person who, for him, his garden wasn't necessarily there from a beauty perspective. It was there because they actually planned to grow a lot of vegetables and fruits and stuff on the land itself. And I wouldn't say completely live off it, but have a large...
Quite self-sustaining.
Yeah, big time. And that's something that matters a lot to him and his wife. So learning and speaking to him about how he's planned to use a rainwater harvesting system in his case, sort of collecting that rainwater, was also very interesting. And that's so when you ask the question, is it the 2 videos that I'm most proud of or whatever, I think that along with Peter's video is another one that, those 3 as a trio this year I'm really happy with, because we've captured that personal story. And that's something that on behalf of Graph UK I want to focus on even more next year. I think there's the wider, bigger projects which are important to talk about, but when you can sort of isolate someone's personal story and sort of really dig down as to why it matters to them, why they care about the things they do, people that can relate to them are going to relate so much more.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to focus on that a lot more next year, whether it is rainwater, wastewater, storm, garden, whatever it is. So yeah, really happy with this video. It's really, really happy.
And another kind of common trend, especially with the Peter video, is he again was another individual who was aware of his actions, aware of the external environment, and think to himself, what can I do now? What's in my control that I can do to make a difference?
Absolutely. So his project, for context, in case you haven't seen it, is around really his self-build. He had the opportunity, him and his wife have retired, and they've said, what do we want to do when it comes to building the dream home? What would that look like? And so for them, in that conversation they had, sustainability was a massive part of it. And in the video, we actually list out all the things they're planning to do. I mean, basically, as much as they can do, whether it comes down to heating or electricity or water, they want to make sure that they're being as sustainable as they can. Even if that means them costing more in the short term and then recouping it back over the long term. Again, so really perfect, ideal people to be speaking to. And they are on a farm in the middle of nowhere. So they've got, I mean, there are other farms around them, but really they are sort of alone in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can be self-sustaining as much as they can, they will. So yeah, a really good video. I definitely recommend checking that one out as well. Again, not necessarily about water, but it's about rainwater harvesting systems, but same conversation. He's in Yorkshire. They've got a hosepipe ban, especially for the size of their garden and the amount of vegetable, plant, flower grow they want to be doing. If there was a hosepipe ban, it would be an absolute nightmare walking back and forth, just filling it up every 10 seconds. Having the rainwater harvesting system there with the amount of water they can collect is without a doubt essential.
Yeah. It was all back to how can I collect rainwater and reuse it in the best way possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, really good video. And I hope to really be doing more videos like that soon. I think there is obviously the Ross project that we've talked about and been working on for a while. That's another really good example. Someone building their dream home and off-grid again, wanting to use the rainwater harvesting system. In his case, it was to, spoiler alert, to do the cars, that kind of thing, as well as they want to have a beautiful garden out the front as well. So they've got a nice size rainwater harvesting system in there. And again, like I keep saying, these personal stories, that's where I want to focus next year. We've done a few good ones this year. I'd like to do another one this year. And that's where I think, from a messaging perspective, we can make the biggest difference.
By showing the use cases of people with their stories, the challenges they're facing, and the decisions they're making to help tackle those challenges.
Because a lot of people might have an issue going through their mind of, okay, well, we've got a hosepipe ban. How are we going to deal with this? But they might not know what the solutions are. They might not know that rainwater harvesting, to us it seems obvious, but it might not be top of their mind or something they've really thought about. They might have just heard about it but thought maybe it's too expensive, and then maybe they should consider water bikes or whatever it is. And so by having these kind of sort of very honest and open videos that we put out there to help educate and sort of inform people, that information is just going to help people in those situations make more easier decisions.
Yeah.
And more informed decisions, I should say.
Very true. As Luke has said, if you wanted to reach out and showcase your story, we'd be more than happy to film it. So if you do, make sure you go to watermatters.life and let us know if you do want to have your garden showcased, as we very much would love to. Luke, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for the videos. You did an amazing job.
Welcome as always.
And thank you for listening once again. Cheers.
Thanks very much.